You know, in the past, we might have to rely on just a flight data recorder or a cockpit voice recorder for recorded information, but today that availability has just exploded. It's not just what's in the cockpit, but what's available to all of us. And years ago, we might have had to rely on airport surveillance video. Now, everyone has got a video camera in their pocket, and so we have so much information. Many times, we're getting information from the public, actually, you know, crash sequences being filmed by the public, sometimes inadvertently. It's just in the background. Very helpful, but a huge workload increase for our lab. Our recorders lab, in the time that I've been at the board, has had a 200% increase in the devices that's coming into the lab that they have to read out. And we're not talking about just recorders anymore.
And what's the actual process when you keep all this information? Is it stored on some kind of Avid system, or I don't know, how do you store all that stuff?
Sure. Well, and some of the information that's coming from the aircraft is designed to be recorded, used for accident investigation. Other things on the aircraft are really just for monitoring and for health of the engines, or it's non-volatile memory. It's there. We can access it. We can use it. We take that information in our investigations. We're a very transparent organization. We might summarize it, put that information in our docket, or we might actually put the actual data, the information, right there in our docket so that if other people want to take a look at it, they can. One of the big issues for us is proprietary information or technology. We've got to make sure that we protect that for the manufacturers. And so we want to understand what's happening, but we need to also protect how they do their technology as well.
In terms of the way that you investigate things, there's the ways you can process information. There's also the ways that the places the information comes from. Does that change the way you do an investigation?
Our processes are still the same. We gather the information, we document the evidence, but when we look at things like technology, we see that flight data recorders that used to have 8 parameters in an investigation 20 years ago, now today on this 777, we've got 1,400 parameters on the flight data recorder. We can see a lot of things about what's going on inside of that cockpit that we could never see before.
So in this investigation, are you finding a lot of, is there sort of an iterative process to surprise, or is it narrowing down things that you start broad and start to really focus on individual things?
That's exactly right. The NTSB starts broad. Everything's on the table when we begin an investigation. It's not just deciding what things we want to rule in, but also what things we want to rule out. And so early on in the investigation, we're looking at, was there criminal activity? No. We look at the weather. What kind of weather did they have? It was a clear day. They had 10 miles visibility. Okay, we're not really, you know, looking at a weather-related accident, but we look at the weather. So we look at it, and if we can rule things out, we rule things out. Now we begin to collect information, collect evidence, do the documentation, look at the data, look at the equipment. And so that begins to help us create a more comprehensive picture of what was going on. And yes, it does help us narrow our focus. And so we're going to focus on those things and spend more time on those things that we think are central to the accident.
Maybe 20 years ago, were there tools what were the tools that an investigator would be using, and what are they today?
Well, 20 years ago, certainly we'd be using, you know, tape measures to look at distances. Today out there, we're using things like total station, specific GPS-based technology. We can go out and we can do a laser scan of the accident site. So it's not a paper map or a photograph that we're using anymore. We can look at things in 3D. We can identify and specifically pinpoint debris fields, the aircraft, the damage to the aircraft, so we can overlay the damaged aircraft on an exemplar aircraft and really determine what was damaged, how was it impacted, what surfaces were affected. And there's a lot that we can do in investigations now. Sophisticated animations that can be back-driven by the flight data recorder information. Really a lot of tools available.
It's interesting. I wonder, do you sort of feel that when you're working on a case like this, where you've just got, well, I can get to that. I know I've got the tools necessary to get this thing done? You
know, the very best tool that we have is our investigators. You can't change that. We've got smart people. They're experienced. They know what they're doing. They have better tools to help them do their jobs. But at the end of the day, it's that experienced investigator that's going to really understand what needs to happen and how it needs to happen.